Hello, good morning all. Welcome back to the story behind the story. I'm Sierra Melcher of Red Thread Publishing. This is the interview series where we highlight a female author. We bring her and her book and her journey to the forefront so she can tell us about the process of writing so that you, dear listener, can also move on your process of writing because you have a book in you, you have a story in you. Otherwise, you'd be listening to some other podcast. So you are here, we are here, and my new friend Karen is here. Karen's going to introduce herself because nobody can do it better than she can. Welcome, Karen.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here, Sarah. What an honor to be able to share my story. I was just sharing with you, I think story matters so important, so much. And probably I can define myself in 2 words. It's actually the name of my book, An Anointed Mess. My house is never immaculate. It's hygienal, it's never immaculate. I'm always thinking of 10 things at once. I don't even know where my iron is, but I'm powerful and I'm used, and I think just like a masterpiece, not without flaw, but absolutely used. And I believe everybody's like that. So I would love to help other people find their anointing, their mess, whatever, both.
Right. And actually, so it's the title of your book that caught my eye because this is something, while we don't have everything in common, we have this in common in that I like to celebrate the imperfection. And that whole story of it's supposed to be better, or it should be this, or I'm not ready because I don't own an iron, like whatever the story has been that's holding someone back from whatever it is that they want to do. Maybe it's writing a book, maybe it's starting a business, maybe it's moving to a new country. Whatever the story is about, I'm not that yet, or I'm not that ever, I'm over it. And so I love sort of the holy work in progress.
Right, absolutely.
And I really appreciate that. So you have a book out. Tell us about your book journey and anything that you want to share that really can serve our listening audience to take one step or a leap and a bound closer to digging into their story so that they can share their voice.
Awesome. Actually the cover of my book, which my daughter helped me with because I'm not very good at visual. It's one of the things I'm bad at. It's a bunch of colors of paint kind of melding into each other. And I think it looks beautiful, but doesn't look organized, but it's beautiful. And that's how I've come to think of me. I used to be the person who thought I had to have it all together, who thought I had to have the answers. Actually, the book, I started writing it about 15 years ago. And I really almost saw it as like a spiritual self-help at first. I'm not a self-help person. If you want your problems to be over, just go to heaven. I can't do it, I'm not telling you to go to heaven or anything else. That was a horrible thing to say. But I had an issue with a renter who was not kind, and I was thinking, if I can just get over this, and then my money problems will be over, and I can tell everybody this is how God leads you to victory. And it was always kind of like the first few chapters, and it's like, okay, so I'm having issues with where I'm working, nonprofit, they cut the job, and okay, so I'll just write the book and it'll get published, I'll be a bestseller. And I just kept thinking, if I just do this, and that doesn't happen. Maybe like if you
it doesn't happen.
Have a famous parent, that's not usually what happens. And right. So I just kept writing it and kept thinking, okay, I kept getting almost. And then about 10 years ago, my best friend said, it's not finished. That's why it's not published yet. It's not finished. And somehow through it, I discovered that, the joy and the meaning and the story, the good stuff, it's not about the end. Nobody would watch a movie if it was about the end. I was thinking about Star Wars, people watch Star Wars 1 because they wanted to know, even the bad guy, how did Darth Vader get that way? It's the stuff, I would say the thing that you probably think is keeping you from writing the story, write about that. That's your story. That's your story. So I started, it's happened. And then this house that was just this horrible nightmare house had a very hard tenant, just everything broke down. We almost went into bankruptcy for it. I got up one night in the middle of the night and I wrote like this chapter. I hadn't written for a year. It was like 14 and a half years. And it was done. I'm like, it's done. I said in my head, it's done, but we have no money. to publish it. And then we found out within a week, our old neighbors wanted to buy our house at a good price and we didn't have to do it. So there's money. And then I'm like, but I can't tell my husband we have no money. Let's use it to make a book. And he said to me, like, yeah, it's time to publish your book. And it was just so cool because like years and years of like breakdowns and more breakdowns. And I'm thinking, I thought I was called to write people about how to have a better life. And I recognize I do have a better life. Like I've had such intense pain, such intense breakdown. And every day I'm smacked in the face with my own humanity. And at some point I finally caught, well, why not just celebrate it? You know, so a lot of times on my podcast, the first thing I say is, okay, I'm really bad at this. And it's not because
and you're doing it anyway. You don't have to be
you
good
know,
at it in order to do it.
Yeah, and I'm a bad cook, but let's talk about food. And it's that's the thing.
Get better though, right?
Right.
Like, my daughter's 6. How did she get good at the stuff that she's already good at? And how is she gonna get better at the stuff that she's not great at?
Right. And that's whole part of the
just tell her to stop. But I do that to myself. I'm like, oh, well, you're not good at this yet, so you should just sit down.
Right.
You don't get better that way. Yeah.
Right. And I love that. So now I try to explain myself in case people think I'm like beating myself up. I think that's part of the beauty, the fact that I can laugh at the things that I'm not great at. Like I'll never be a good athlete, you know, it's okay. I can enjoy sports. I'm a pretty good singer, but people don't want to hear that. So I'm not going to sing right now, you know? And I just like, to me, that's part of celebrating your beauty, to be released from needing to be perfect. And it's part of celebrating your story to say, okay, one thing I discovered is the stuff that I was ashamed of. And even my husband and I, the stuff we went through in our marriage, you know, we felt like, okay, we're Christians, so we're not allowed to have problems. We're not allowed to have a broken marriage. We're not allowed to struggle with this and this. But once we shared it, like it was part of our own healing. And so we keep sharing it. And not only that, we found other people that were like us. Oh, you went through that. It's like you think you're alone and you share it and you're like, oh.
And you're the catalyst for someone else.
Right.
Like,
and then
thank goodness I'm not the only one.
Yes.
And this comes back to your earliest point, like we all need each other's stories.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it's so you've touched on 2 points that come up on the regular, like all the reasons why we don't write or haven't finished or aren't ready or, you know, all the reasons why not. But those are the gems.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And before I even got into publishing, I was working with women's empowerment, and it was always, we talked about the messy middle and the breakdown through is this sort of concept, the breakdown and the breakthrough. We just wanted the breakthrough, but we don't want the dirty, messy part. I don't know why I keep getting really dark. It's very sunny behind me, so I'm just going to snuggle up. So the breakdown through is like, go towards the mess, go towards the chaos, go towards the imperfection, because right on the other side of that is the money that you need to publish your book, or the chapter that's been missing, or the thing, or the confidence to do it. But if we're waiting for famous parents, or we're waiting for, to have a tidy house, then just get comfy waiting, because nothing else is coming down the track.
Yes. Yeah. I love that.
What was something that shifted for you as a result of the publishing process? You've talked to us about the writing process and some of the ahas there, but what's changed for you now that this book is out?
Wow. I think I've always known I had a voice, so I'm grateful for that. I had parents that were empowered me. I don't think they could have stopped me from talking, because I like to do it so much. So I think I'm getting more comfortable now with my voice, and it's funny that I feel like I'm starting to live the book more, because it's like, as a teacher, you understand this, as a teacher,
I do.
You're on the hook as soon as you teach something, So if you want to teach with integrity, and I believe no matter what you believe or profess, integrity is so powerful and so important. I'm on the hook now, so I'm practicing it. Like, one of the big things that I say in the book is God's grace, and like there's adventure in every day. and God's grace is available every day. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to live from your lowest point. You don't have to live from your highest point. You can just live every day. And so I'm like, wow, I'm on the hook. So, so now every day I'm doing a podcast. I don't know who's listening to it. I don't have a way of tracking it because of where it is, but I don't want to say I don't care, but I sort of don't, I don't care in the sense that it helps me because every day it's like, oh, that's true. It's like you say something and then it's like the pastor who talks about grief when you lose something and then he loses something and goes, oh yeah, there's a way to work through this, you know, and it's like, oh yeah, I do have a voice. I do. I can be comfortable with myself. I used to be so uncomfortable with myself when I did YouTube. I couldn't look at myself in the face. So I put a little smiley face in front of me. And then I thought that was the weirdest thing. So I'm going like this. I'm looking everywhere. And I'm like, I just got to get used to it. So it's like literally and proverbially, I'm getting comfortable looking myself in the eye every day because I keep coming back to myself. And who I am is good and is beautiful. And I'm sloppy. And that's okay. That's okay.
And so I think that's really incredible. I've heard this quote a lot recently of Flannery O'Connor. I write to discover what I know. And so now that you've published this thing, you're reminded of what you know, and now you can live what you know to be true.
Amen. I love that.
And others can too, because now it's not just in your journal, it's out there in the world.
Yeah.
And I love what you say about your podcast, because if we show up for others, but if we're only showing up for others if they also show up, then we're not really showing up. Right? It's like, I'm showing up because this is what I believe in and this is how I want to live my life. Then people will come probably more to that than I'm showing up for you so that you can show up for me and make me feel good about myself and all of the other, like, I'm not actually ready to just show up in the story.
Yeah. So that seems to take the joy out of it, doesn't it? If it's about what I can give you, and it takes the integrity out of it, because like anytime I don't want to listen to a preacher, a sermon, or anything when they're saying, "Let me tell you how I've overcome, and you can be like me." It's like I'm listening to a person, not God. So I try to remind myself. That's another reason I say this is what I'm bad at, because if we're saying let's journey together, that's a lot different than let me lead you while you look at the back of my head and I pretend to be something I'm not. You know, and it's just joyful when it's like, I just get to be me and be me with me, be you with me.
One of my philosophies is there is no done, you know, in this, like, because there's this story that, again, it's all story. The stories that we tell ourselves that if I do this, then I'll be ready, or once I've done this, then I'm done, or, you know, then I'll be loved, or then I'll be, you know, next. There is no such place until we are dead, and then we are done with this version. But if we're living like, when I'm not ready yet and I'll do it later because of the done space, then we're missing the whole opportunity. This is it. Do this. And so the leaders that I appreciate and respect and follow are the ones still on the journey.
Right.
They're not like, I'm over here, I'll send you a message. Join me when you can. Because I don't believe that. They've stopped. Once you're done, you've sort of stopped. You're learning and you're growing and your willingness to play. So that's what I'm here for. I like to keep these really short. I'm going to make sure to include in the show notes ways to read your book, links to your podcast, a little bit more about you. Is there anything else you want to say before we say adios?
Yeah, I think we've already said it, but to anybody who's listening, your story matters. Your words matter. Whether you write a book or write a letter or write a tweet, just share it. It's worth it. It's worth hearing. Yeah.
Excellent. Karen, thank you so much for both joining us today, and before that for writing your book and putting your story out there too. Thank you.
It's been a joy.
As always, like, follow, subscribe, all of those social media things. connect with us. Stay tuned. Next week, we will have another female author on joining, sharing about her book and her journey. And we'll always be here. If you have a story that you want to tell and you need a little bit more of a nudge or a community or a cheerleader, reach out to us. That's what we at Red Thread are all about. I'll talk to you soon.